To that anger by looting or carrying guns and even attacking the police only serves to raise tensions and stir chaos. It undermines rather than advancing justice. Let me also be clear that our constitutional rights to speak freely, to assemble, and to report in the press must be vigilantly safeguarded, especially in moments like these. There's no excuse for excessive force by police or any action that denies people the right to protest peacefully. Ours is a nation of laws for the citizens who live under them and for the citizens who enforce them. So to a community in Ferguson that is rightly hurting and looking for answers, let me call once again for us to seek some understanding rather than simply holler at each other. Let's seek to heal rather than to wound each other. As Americans, we've got to use this moment to seek out our shared humanity that's been laid bare by this moment. The potential of a young man and the sorrows of parents, the frustrations of a community, the ideals that we hold as one united American family. I've said this before, in too many communities around the country, a gulf of mistrust exists between local residents and law enforcement. In too many radios that they could operate effectively in the midst of a disaster. Some communities needed to be prepared if, in fact, there was a chemical attack and they didn't have hazmat suits. Having said that, I think it's probably useful for us to review how the funding has gone, how local law enforcement has used grant dollars to make sure that what they're purchasing is stuff that they actually need, because there is a big difference between our military and our local law enforcement, and we don't want those lines blurred. That would be contrary to our traditions. And I think that there will be some bipartisan interest in re-examining some of those programs. With respect to the National Guard, I think it's important just to remember this was a state-activated National Guard, so it's under the charge of the governor. This is not something that we initiated at the federal level. I spoke to Jay Nixon about this, expressed an interest in making sure that if in fact a National Guard is used, it is used in a limited and appropriate way. He described the support role that they're going to be providing to local law enforcement, and I'll be watching over the next several days to assess whether in fact it's helping rather than hindering progress in Ferguson. Steve Holland, Reuters.
Thank you. How do you avoid mission creep in Iraq, and how long do you think it will take to contain ISIL?
Well, I have been firm from the start that we are not reintroducing thousands of U.S. troops back on the ground to engage in strikes in Iraq. Don't think that because we have engaged in airstrikes to protect our people, that now's the time to let the foot off the gas and return to the same kind of dysfunction that has so weakened the country generally. Dr. Abadi has said the right things. I was impressed in my conversation with him about his vision for an inclusive government, but they've got to get this done because the wolf's at the door, and in order for them to be credible with the Iraqi people, they're going to have to put behind some of the old practices and actually create a credible united government. When we see a credible Iraqi government, we are then in a position to engage with planning, not just with the Iraqi government, but also with regional actors and folks beyond the Middle East, so that we can craft the kind of joint strategy, joint counterterrorism strategy that I discussed at West Point, and I discussed several years ago at the National Defense College. Our goal is to have effective partners on the ground. And if we have effective partners on the ground, mission creep is much less likely. Typically what happens with mission creep is when we start deciding that we're the ones who have to do it all ourselves. And that, because of the excellence of our military, that can work for a time. We learned that in Iraq. But it's not sustainable. It's not lasting. And so, I've been very firm about this precisely because our goal here has to be able to build up a structure, not just in Iraq, but regionally, that can be maintained, and that is not involving us effectively trying to govern or impose our military will